So, as we talked about from last week, we went through what it is like to give and receive love. And for those of you that didn't get part one, part two, or part three, let me know, and I can send you those links for that. I only keep it on Facebook site just for about 5 days or so for those that have missed it and want to catch the class in their own time after. But if we're doing part four today, and as I said, when we are mastering all the other gifts, so our connection to spirit, our connection to the earth, and then our connection to our own love and giving and receiving. Some people can give a lot of love and have a really hard time receiving. We talked about that a little bit last week. But when all of that is in balance, then this fourth gift comes up, this gift of imagination. And one of the things I love about kids is that they have mastered this right at birth. I mean, they've just come from the spirit world, and for the first while, they can play with a plastic bottle and be entertained for hours. They can do so much. And, it makes us learn that they're living in the moment. They're living that they want to have joy right now. And they're also connected to the earth. They're always in bare feet when they're in the backyard. Usually, there's always some connection to the earth in that way. And of course, giving and receiving love is never a problem. They'll take it, they'll give it. They're so open. And actually, what happens is we have all four, and of course, imagination for kids is amazing. And as we get older, we kind of lose that last one, the imagination part. We have a hard time visioning things. And one of the hardest things for coaches, we have a few coaches in our midst today. One of the hardest things for a coach to sometimes get through to some people is to create a goal. But that in that goal, you have to not only say, okay, I'm going to attain X, Y, Z, whether it's a financial goal or whether it's to, let's say, attain something, you could buy a home or get things. Whatever it is, it's a vision. And some people have a really hard time with that. They can't sort of see it. And when you can't see it or feel it, it's much harder to manifest. It has to be part of you. One of the things that I've seen in kids doing, years ago, I saw in one of the client things that we were doing that we had an 8-year-old boy in that family. And when you walked into his room, everything in his room was NASCAR. The covers, NASCAR. He had a couple of models on his, or several models on his table, all NASCAR, NASCAR pajamas, NASCAR underwear, NASCAR socks, you can name it, everything was NASCAR. And right away I said, well, as soon as he is able to drive, he will be a NASCAR driver, or he will be a racing car driver. Well, guess what happened when he hit 14? He was already on the track racing. And it's only because that vision was so strong at such an early age, he never let go of that vision. And he became what the vision is. I mean, it's easy to say. But what happens is when we don't have that vision, it starts to deteriorate. Usually after the age of 10 or 11, something happens in the mind where we switch off. We become more domesticated, I call it, because we're more interested in helping people or showing people that we're going to listen to them. We don't break the rules. We sort of, everyone wants to put us in a box, and many of us resist, but some don't. They'll just say, yeah, I'll just be whatever, if dad wants you to be a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer, then even though it means nothing to you, you want to be able to go through that vision to help your parents, to make them happy and proud of you. So we fit into that box. And then we kind of lose ourselves because it isn't a vision that we came up with. We're not creating it. So that imagination starts to dwindle and it becomes very difficult. Those people that are having a really hard time meditating, in other words, they're going through a zone and they can't see any pictures. They can't see any auditory, and it's more like a feeling, but it's quite weak. So what we did with this imagination part, we're going to rekindle some of this imagination energy. Imagination is a frequency. If you're in the frequency of irritation or if you're in a frequency of anger, or you're just sort of distraught, that's a frequency. And try to get something creative when you're in those vibrations. It is impossible to think of something creative when you're angry. It's all in the mind then. Everything's in the mind. So as soon as you become in that imagination frequency, as we'll call it, then all of a sudden things just start coming to you. Some of the things that are in business, let's say that you want to attain, all of a sudden, oh, I could do this. Now, why didn't I think of that before? Kind of, it's an epiphanies. And they usually come when we're driving, when we're ironing, or when we're peeling carrots or something like that. Something sort of mindless, you know. And then our mind is working on the activity part while the spirit or the energies are kind of, are opening up. And when you're in that nice, comfortable, calm sort of state, you get to this vibration. It is a certain vibration that can be measured in hertz. And when we hit that, all of a sudden things start coming in. Even if you're only in it for a few moments. Like we might be in it while we're driving, and then all of a sudden something hits you for a few seconds. Boom, you get something right away. Something is right there, and you don't know where it came from. Sometimes we'll say, oh, it's something that I thought of. It isn't. It's something that came in. Because your mind is always active, and you're not getting it all the time. So your mind is active, but it's not in this wavelength. The mind usually works in alpha and beta. The alpha is sort of a daydreaming kind of thing. It's still, the mind is involved. Beta is full alertness. In other words, you're fully human, if I could use that word. But as soon as we get into another frequency of the mind, the theta and the delta, this is the sleep state and the meditative state, then we get into this imagination world. And this is where we open ourselves up to anything. The one thing that I thought was really good, timing was perfect. Last night I saw this movie. It's been out for a little while now. It's called Yesterday. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this movie. It's actually a lower budget movie. It's not a high effects or anything, but somehow I got pulled to watch this movie. And I was going to do something else, but Spirit said, no, watch this. And so I said, okay, I did. And it was interesting because it's all about this guy. He's a musician, guitar player, and he's been working on his craft for about 10 years, making his own music, and not really that good of a singer, right? He wasn't that, I've heard like sometimes street vendors will sing better than this particular individual. But anyway, he was going through this, and his manager and him were like working together for 10 years to try and launch his career, and just nothing really took. It was almost like he had to almost pay to perform. And then he got this one gig in a festival. He says, oh my God, if I can get a big festival where there's 30,000 people watching, that'd be a great break for me. And ended up he ended up being in a kiddie tent. Like they had the big stadium on one side, but they put him way in the back 40 in a tent where people would walk through and listen to his music. And it was kind of like kids running around playing ball. And it was quite sad, actually, to see that not many people really paying attention to his music. And finally he says, I'm sorry, I forget the manager's name, but he says to her, this is it. Obviously my career's not going anywhere. This is my last gig. I've tried for 10 years, and it just isn't working. As the movie goes on, he's driving home on his bike, and he's got the guitar strapped to his back as he's pedaling through town. And somehow it shows that there's a sun flare or some kind of a solar flare that hits the planet and makes the entire planet black for a few moments. Everything's black. Because it's all black, he hits a bus and he wipes out, breaks his guitar, that kind of thing. He gets out of the hospital, and he's going to his place. He says, oh my God, well, just as well that I broke my guitar because I was getting out of the business anyway. So then his manager said, no, I bought you a guitar. So they met at this patio with his other friends, and he says, "Oh, this is great, but I don't see myself really playing anymore." He said, "Well, just play one more song." So as it turned out, this sun flare had erased some of the things that would normally have happened in history. There was no such thing as Coca-Cola. There was no Coca-Cola ever. So when the guy was on a flight and he asked for Coke, he says, "What? I don't know what that means." Pepsi, Coke? Yeah, we have Pepsi. I don't know this Coke thing. There's no Coca-Cola. So he tried to Google it, and there's no such thing as Coca-Cola. And there's also no such thing as the Beatles. And it was interesting because he didn't know this, but in this patio setting, he took his guitar and he played the song Yesterday, you know, the one from the Beatles. He played it, and everybody is just in awe. He says, "That's the most beautiful song I've ever heard." And he says, "What? This is from the Beatles." "The Beatles? You mean Bugs?" "No, no, no, the group, the Beatles." "Who are they?" And he just, for a moment, he didn't sort of catch on. And so he sang this song. He says, that's a beautiful song. That's really got to me. And half the people in the patio were like teary-eyed. He said, "That's an amazing song." So then he goes home, and something else happens about the Beatles, and he says, "Okay, I gotta." So he goes to a cafe, and he starts to Google the Beatles, and all he sees is Bugs. He puts in Paul McCartney, and it's some guy in the 1850s, his name. He said, "No, Paul McCartney." And he said, "John Lennon, no such number, no such name." and he did Ringo. No, there's no such person, no such people as the Beatles, and he did it in all of the performers. So, make a long story short, he started singing Beatles songs to everybody, and he said, "This is the most amazing song." In a very short time, in less than a month, he attained world-class stardom. He would go to an auditorium, like an outside, and draw tens of thousands of people to his music, right? And the draw was incredible. And there was obviously scouts looking for him. Managers were saying, "Okay, we can make you the best thing, the number one performer on this planet." And it was interesting because I saw some of the subtleties. Because he was a small town performer, he never had the vision or the imagination that he could be something bigger. So there was a conflict there. His identity was a small-time performer, and he couldn't get his head wrapped around this world-class, like everybody wants you sort of thing, and it really worked on him. What it also showed me is that he didn't sing the songs actually that great compared to the performers and the Beatles, but he still attained stardom. And what that sort of showed me was talent isn't everything. Up to that point, for the first 10 years before he started singing the songs from the Beatles, up to that point, he was singing and creating the songs out of his head. The whatever would sound good sort of thing, and whatever his head would be okay with, that's what he wrote. But as soon as you dip into something larger than you, the same performer that didn't perform that great hit stardom. So that tells me that when people say, "Well, I'm not that great of a business person," or "I'm not that great of a health professional," or "I'm not that great as a whatever it is, I'll never attain," this sort of shows me that it isn't only about talent. Because even now, I could go down, for those of you that are outside of Canada, I could go downtown to our city right now, and I could pick out 3 or 4 performers that would be world class in their right now. So they have the talent, but somehow they haven't attained that spirit, that imagination zone where they're writing their songs where, and I'll tell you, some of the songs that I hear them singing, it's what I call like a vaccination song. In other words, you hear it once and you're okay. I don't need to hear it again. What are the songs that are timeless? the ones that you make you cry, that you know what you were doing at the time, and you can't wait to hear the song again. Imagination from John Lennon is that kind of a song. Is I could hear that, I could put it on loop on the same song, and I can listen to that all day, and I would not get tired of it. I could go on my motorcycle and listen to it again. In other words, there's something to the song that is more than words and more than songs, more than melody. There's something in there that was given to him. It didn't come out of his head, because this is larger than life. And it is considered one of the best songs ever written. So what can we attain from being in this imagination zone? What can we learn from that? The first thing we'll learn is if you want to attain anything, and with many of my decades of experience, whenever I see something in my head, I know I can attain it. And it happens. If it's not clear in my head, I don't even start, because I can't see it happening. It's an imagination thing. So if I can see it in my vision, then I could say, okay, I could work out the details humanly after, but it's not my mind that is creating it. It's my mind executing it, yes. It's my mind that's going through the quality control. Okay, this could be better and that could be, yes, that's all my mind. But where is that inspiration coming from? You might say to yourself, it could be spirit, it could be wherever it is. If you're open to anything, it has to be something that is outside of yourself that will make any difference to someone else. It has to be a universal energy that no matter whether it's a child or an old person, or it doesn't matter what ethnic group they are, what race they are, it doesn't matter. Somebody that would hear, listen, or see your work. If you're a sculptor, what makes it that two sculptors can make the same thing? And one would say, yeah, that's pretty good, and the other one, you can't take your eyes off it. They're making the same thing, but somehow the shapes are a little different, and it might look a little different, but it gives you something. There's something to that. Mona Lisa is the same thing. What is it about the smile? It's said that Da Vinci, or Leonardo, had created most of the picture in a very short time, but spent almost 2 or 3 months on the smile. And you could tell, right? Because that's the first thing you're drawn to, and now it's worth millions of dollars. Because there's something about the smile. It's so subtle, and it looks so simple, but you can't take your eyes off it. So what is that? What is it that's so simple that you just can't wait to hear it again? You can't wait to see it again. You can't wait to experience it again. When we apply that kind of logic to our businesses, what makes it so people will go to the ends of the earth to get your coaching skills, to get your personal training skills, to get whatever it is that you have? It isn't because you're good. That is a factor. Yes, it's one of the factors, but it's not the only factor. Sometimes when we work so hard at our craft, like really work hard, the working hard doesn't work either. Because this guy went from 10 years nothing, and within 1 month, just simply singing their music at his tone. He was a little off pitch sometimes, and he world started. So there's something other than talent that came into play. People felt something. And in one of the meetings, the quote was, "People won't remember what you said and won't remember what you did, but they'll always remember the way you made them feel." I think it was Ralph Emerson Waldo or something. But that is so true. People will always remember the emotion because it touches their heart. And I'll tell you something. This day and age, there's a lot of hearts that need touching. With all the things we've been going through with COVID over the last 2 years and many things before, people are going through all kinds of their own challenges. No matter how old you are, whether you're a teenager or whether you're just turning 80, you're going through a shift of some kind that you need guidance for. You're going through something that is hurting you. You're going through something that not sure how to get past. And it's okay. It's absolutely okay. So all of those connections and all of those things that are happening, will come from an imagination to get past it, because your mind will never figure it out. It won't. Because in your waking hours, the majority of your time, your mind is on. And if you haven't figured it out, it's not going to come from there. It's going to come from this imagination frequency. When you ask the question, how do I get past this? What do I need to know? You're almost asking, the energies are already around you and they can't wait to start delivering. That's why as soon as you get into this frequency, when you're ironing or driving or whatever you're doing, I get it when I'm driving my motorcycle too. All the things start coming in. Last week, after we were done, I wasn't sure what exactly we were going to cover today. And so by Sunday, I says, okay, I still don't know. So I jumped on my bike and I said, okay, I just got to sort of get me out of my head. So I know what to do to get into that zone. And the moment I'm on my bike and I feel free, boom, boom, it just started coming in. And I just say, okay, then what? Then what? Tell me more, tell me more. By the time I came back, I couldn't run fast enough to go downhill and start taking notes. All right? And so that's how I get my answers. And of course, my tuning forks, and there's different frequencies that I use that can do it. So what I did was, for your benefit, I looked on everything that I could find on the imagination frequency on YouTube, because I like working with YouTube because that's why it's free for you guys, okay? I don't want you to spend money on all this is free. We just got to get it together, gather it together, and just deliver it. But there's nothing that I saw. It had to have something humanly where it would be entertaining. It would mean something for you visually. But most of the work would be embedded in the sounds. And I wanted to embed this imagination frequency. It's actually 112 hertz. It's a very, very low frequency, and you can't even really hear it. However, I made it to such a degree, so I couldn't find one that did the thing, so I created one from scratch. And I didn't know how I was going to do that, so that was another journey to find out how I was going to do this. But then once I found it, it says, okay, so Spirit, you and I are going to do this. And I take no credit for this video that I sort of created. I went by dictation, because I wanted to make something that no matter who would listen to this at any time, instead of having that vibration for maybe 30 seconds, if you're lucky, if you're in that zone for 30 seconds or a minute even, that's great. So I created, or I helped create, a 14-minute video, and the whole thing is this frequency. So what I want you to do when we get into this state, I want you to think of something that you're trying to get past. How do I expand my business, or how do I make my craft even better? What do I need to do at this time? Whatever your question is, it's good to go in with a question, because as soon as you start getting pictures and answers and epiphanies and whatever you want to call it, messages that come in, you want to know what you're going to be addressing. This way something's going to be coming in that is current right now that you could use right after class. Instead of trying to figure it out for the next 6 months, let's do it in the next 20 minutes. I'm always excited when I can do something like that. Time is never a factor when it comes to spirit. We can do this very fast, energetically. So there's nothing like this. You're the first people on earth that's going to hear this. So I want you to get comfortable. And it's not a meditation, okay? Now, if you feel like you want to close your eyes and zone out, that's fine. But for this time, I want you to look at the video, because it has all the factors that I wanted. I wanted something on a human level that you could watch and be sort of entertained and be touched a little bit and have some sort of surface emotional stuff. And in all while that's going, in the background, that 112 frequency is just going and constantly opening up your energies so that you can start getting visuals and this imagination energy. Then you will go back to before you were 10 years old, when it was at its highest peak. Because if you look at a child now, it's amazing. They could be by themselves, and they have two dolls, or they have two dinosaurs. Like my grandson, he's loved dinosaurs, and they're talking together. And he says, "Okay, now it's my turn to jump over the fence," and like their imagination is incredible, and this will replicate that for you. And when you ask your question, it will be just as incredible in terms of how you're going to get answers. So have a little pad of paper beside you. So as you're watching the video, something comes up, just jot it down. Oh yeah, okay, got to do this, got to do that. Something that is challenging for you right now that you're looking for answers for is probably the best way I can describe it. Okay? So I'll give you a couple of seconds to sort of think about that. And I'm going to play the video. It's 14 minutes long. Okay? And just enjoy. All right? Watch the video. You don't have to close your eyes. Watch the video and just feel where your energies are going. We have so many different ways that this video is going, and it should be able to hit most of the things that are happening or has happened in your life and what is coming up for you in any of those. Okay? All right, let's do this. So how are you feeling? Took you 14 minutes to get to where you are now. Are you a different person from when you started? Do you feel that anything come to you during, I don't need to know what it is, but did something come to you that you were asking for? A vision, a thought, an option that you didn't entertain before?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.